handle your case from beginning to end and are as invested as you are in getting the outcome you deserve.
If you get an injury, just call Gingery, Hammer, and Schneiderman.
916-4-INJURY.
At Rayleigh's in Bel Air, we love helping you save money on your favorite ingredients. This week, get our USDA choice Rayleigh's Boneless London Broil California Raised from Harris Ranch on sale for only $3.97 a pound. You can also enjoy fresh and juicy tomatoes on the vine for only $1.47 a pound. Receive the same superior savings whether you shop in store or order online at Rayleigh's.com. If you're looking for quality, convenience, and exceptional everyday values, you'll find them at your neighborhood Rayleigh's in Bel Air.
On the Odyssey app, there is a place with no judgment, no stereotypes, and no labels. It's called Channel Q. We're the place the LGBTQ plus community and allies gather to talk, to laugh, and play some incredible music. So feel free to join us. Just search Channel Q on the Odyssey app. Channel Q, giving everyone a voice.
We are Channel Q, and we are proud to be an Odyssey original.
Wishes for your future in a world that's changing fast. For all of the things you may one day do play and laugh. Do win and lose. Do learn from your mistakes and challenge yourself to grow. Do not be afraid or make decisions based in fear. Do it all with confidence and with kindness and strength. Do call your mom and ask her for advice. And always do your best to remember that no matter what you do in this life, what matters to me is that you keep doing. And love you always, Mom.
Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Wheat. Roasted nuts make it perfectly salty. Get 2 great tastes in one delicious bar. Enjoy a Nature Valley sweet and salty nut bar today.
No matter what device you have, Odyssey has something you'll love.
Blast your favorite music on home entertainment devices like Roku, Chromecast, Sonos, and more.
Just look for the Odyssey app.
Want to access more stations through your car?
Try out Odyssey with Waze or Apple CarPlay. Plus, listen to your favorite stations on your phone with the Odyssey app.
Listen to Odyssey anytime on all your smart speakers and connected devices.
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
Coming with an all-new tour. 4 quarters of big plays, ankle-breaking moves, and ball-handling wizardry. Do they dunk? Do they dunk? See the stars rattle the rim in the all-new in-game dunk contest. This is the team everyone can cheer for. The Spread Game Tour is coming. Don't miss the Globetrotters in Stockton and Sacramento on January 13th and 17th. Go to HarlemGlobetrotters.com.
Before at Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Sacramento at Fire Mountain. Voted best casino in Sacramento. January at Hard Rock brings you the $300,000 Crystal Cool Winnings Giveaway. Win your share of $40,000 in free play or free bet. Plus, one lucky winner is guaranteed to win a 2022 Audi Q3 every Saturday in January. Only at Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Sacramento.
Hi, this is... By doing our part to protect each other. So let's stick to what's proven to keep us safer from COVID-19 and its variants, like masking up in public indoor settings, getting tested before and after traveling and gathering, and staying home if you feel sick. Let's keep our immunity strong. Visit myturn.ca.gov or call 833-422-4255 to find a vaccine or booster near you.
You have to fill the bucket, pushing a wet, heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer Wet Jet. With Swiffer WetJet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer WetJet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
Real Housewives tea you need on the podcast 2 Teas in a Pod. Join ex-housewives Teddy Mellencamp and Tamra Judge as they watch, recap, armchair quarterback, and break down all things from the hit reality TV franchise. This team tells it like it is.
Each week, we're going to be recapping whatever housewife is currently airing. So, lucky for Tamra, we're going to start...
Oh my gosh.
I know, with Orange County.
Listen to 2 Teas in a Pod on the iHeart-Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C Sports. It is Charlton with Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network on the #1 network in the United States of America. As Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. According to people who love sports, especially the little boys taking the midnight train to Georgia. They got it done last night. Enough injuries for Alabama to make it possible. That it happened. You got to give the dog roof. You got to give the roof some praise. They got the national championship done last night, but they have to go up north to get it done. Up in Indianapolis, Indiana, that's Big Ten territory, but they got it done. Congratulations, Georgia, 33-18 over Alabama, the defending national champions. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by a test drive yours, tell them Charlton, Big C Sports Center, as well as the fleet of Cadillac cars. So also all around the world on a beautiful January the 11th, 2021. Groundbreaking Deportes, bonjour. The Benny Beach Day. Really love saying that. I guess that Hooks on Phonics is actually working. You can follow Big C Sports all around the world on 20 podcast applications from Google Podcasts. You can find us on Alexa, Spotify, Speaker Podcast, Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on iHeart-Radio Podcast, Castbox Podcast, Deezer Podcast, Podcast Addict, and then also Podchaser. And this is where I gotta catch my breath, so give me some praise for counting to 10. If you think it's easy, you try counting to 10. That makes sense there. You can also follow Big C Sports on Geo Savan Podcast out of London, England, 12 Podtail Podcast, YouTube Podcast, Hubhopper, Stitcher Podcast, Radio Line Podcast, Repod Podcast, also Luminary Podcast, as well as Listen Notes, and then Podcast Wise. Give that some praise. That's 20 podcast applications. I say give that some praise. Come on, stand to your feet. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands like they were clapping for Georgia last night. Some good old boys from Georgia got the national championship done. But again, Alabama was out 2 top wide receivers, 2,700 yards in receiving. But at the same time, it still went down to the wire, blocked field goal, just a couple of things. But the defense played well for the Georgia Bulldogs. I thought that Alabama had too many mistakes in that game, but Georgia also had their own mistakes. It was really good football, really up until the last. The score was not as indicative of how good the game was. 33-18. It was really like 25-18. Right about the last, about 2 minutes left in that game. The Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young still threw for over 360 yards, but didn't have his top 2 receivers. You had too many freshman receivers dropping footballs like they were dropping handkerchiefs, all fair and love and war. But you got to give the University of Georgia some credit. The Bulldogs, and they got it done. So again, for the good old boys down in Georgia, you won the Major League Baseball World Series and over the Houston Astros. And then you won the National Football College Championship over the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then you also, they didn't win a football championship. The Atlanta Falcons decided they wanted to stay home and watch the game with everybody else. All friend level war. But you got the Trae Young doing this thing for the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta's become a hotbed. In fact, Georgia's become a hotbed for sports all over the universe. Really appreciate them good boys down in Georgia. Keep it up. Georgia Bulldogs 2021 National College Football Champions. Also, as I say for Big C Sports, I love saying, let's get ready to rumble. I love my family legacy. Just like the Georgia, they have a legacy. They hadn't won a national championship, I think, since it was 1980. The Bulldogs under Herschel Walker doing his thing down there. I think they beat, I might be wrong about it, but I think they beat Penn State. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It could have been Notre Dame, but I think it was Penn State. All friend Leavenworth. Watched the game last night. It was just a lot of excitement up in the second quarter. It was a 9-6 at halftime, but from the second quarter on, you started seeing teams move up and down the field. Alabama and then Georgia came on strong in the second half, especially in that fourth quarter. But I love paying homage to my family legacy. From my mother's side, my great-grandmother called her Mamo, Hattie Leach. She was the matriarch of the family, did everything to keep the family strong. My grandfather, Pop, a former Negro League baseball player, also known for making the best moonshot in the history of the universe. Known for saying, boys, get out of that barn. How many times I got to tell you? It's all fair. And Level War, a really good man. And then my grandmother, Mud Dia, just a very wonderful grandmother. Kept the family strong. A seer, could tell you things about people just by looking at them. And then my grandfather, Hezekiah, just another wonderful human being. My beautiful mother helped start a Head Start program and a feeding program, a food program in Northern California, and helped win the Little League Championship of the universe. Give Mama some praise. I said praise, praise, praise. A Head Start program and help with the food program to make sure the kids would not go to bed hungry. Really do appreciate that. On top of that, winning the Little League Championship of the universe. Really do appreciate that. Always stand rise and shine on my father's side, the matriarch of the family, my grandmother, Alberta Curry, helping my grandfather, Albert Curry, and doing with the family business, also making sure the churches are running. Helped my grandfather start 2 churches in Northern California, built the 3rd one in Central California, and then had 2 service stations in Oakland, California. Really do appreciate that. And then my father, former Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, helped planes fly high so we could stay safe at night. My beautiful brother Todd, with his bombastic voice, sound like lightning all the time when Todd would speak. I want to thank my son Malcolm for sending me NBA stats. At times would just give me stats that I did not even know about. All over the NBA, knows it inside and out. Really do appreciate that, a college student. And then my daughter Daisy would also help me set up for events when coaches would come to the West Coast, setting up an event, making sure that they would get signed up with Big C Sports. And then Big C, with his wealth of knowledge in the past, really do appreciate that, giving everybody some praise. Give it praise, praise, praise. Love saying give it praise as we all rise and shine on a beautiful January the 11th, 2021. Got the rundown of the college finals top 25 program, top 20 programs. And then talking about some things that happened in the game last night. I'll bring that to you as well. We got some word on Major League Baseball coming up with the Hall of Fame inductions coming up soon later this month. Want to talk about that too. But as I love saying, as my grandfather would say, let's get ready to rumble! As we nominated Big C Sports Podcast, really do appreciate that through Disney Corporation. No script and no 3-way teleprompter, no producer in my ear. All I counted is my higher self and some research. I produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects that are provided by the platform, but the company really do appreciate that. Everyone needs more laughter in their life with the sound effects. Do appreciate that. I do the storytelling, and then the commercials provided by the agency out of New York City. I provide the stats. I do the play-by-play as we're going to start hearing more Steph Curry for 3. Hopefully we'll hear that coming up with Klay Thompson also for 3. Klay Thompson for 3. The Splash Brothers. Really hoping we can get a championship back on the West Coast. I know they've been going down south for Georgia with the Braves and now the Bulldogs. And, of course, the Lakers won their championship. The Dodgers got knocked out in the playoffs by them good old boys from down south, even though they had won the championship the year before that. And looking for the 49ers with a bang-bang Niner game going down to the state of Texas, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Hopefully the 49ers can bring a championship back to the West Coast. All fair and love and war. And then I upload the platform to 20 podcast applications. I load to one platform. It goes out to 20 podcast applications all over the world. I never missed a show with Big C Sports since September the 12th, 2015. And I think the only sports show, just my opinion, I might be wrong, but the only sports show that I think is a universe that honors God. I love what I've learned when I was a little boy from my grandparents and my mom. Is Genesis chapter 13:15. It says, "For all the land that thou seest will I give you, and thy seed forever." In the book of James chapter 4 verse 2 said, "We have not because ye ask not." If you want something, make sure you ask and give asking some praise. You got to give asking some praise. Almost everything in life is about asking. You cannot say the right thing to the wrong person, and you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You just got to ask. You got to ask and ask and ask. Really do appreciate that. Asking with Big C Sports Podcast. Talking to some people about streaming more with Big C Sports. But I want to also make sure I pay homage to our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Everybody's going through a little bit of COVID fatigue. Man, a lot of times people just don't know what to do. Some people believe in masks. Some people don't believe in masks. But one thing everybody believes in, if their butts get in trouble, they need to call 911 or get some help for veterans who get trouble. They got a Veterans Crisis Hotline, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And I love giving our Veterans Crisis Hotline some praise. You got to give it praise, our first responders. Everybody wants to call someone and have them answer the phone. Our first responders, they need praise. I love giving them praise with Big C Sports. And they will stand on their head to make sure that you get some help. That's what I hear. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. It's like in Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light." Open your cell phone to say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see our app pop up all over the world. In fact, all over the universe. Really do appreciate that. Really happy to be affiliated with ValleyHomesWeekly.com, a national real estate show that showcases properties in Central California. If you want to know what's going on in real estate in your neck of the woods, go to the nationalrealestatepost.com. That's the nationalrealestatepost.com. If you want to find out what's going on in mortgages in your neck of the woods, mortgage rates are expected to climb somewhat coming up. And they're saying by March, we'll see if that happens or not. It already has dipped up, just a slight uptick. But go to mortgagedailynews.com. You can find out more what's going on in mortgagedailynews.com. Also, if you're looking for funding between $10,000 and $400,000 in funding, funds can be used for any purpose: business startups, real estate investments, repairs, renovations, working capital, down payment assistance, investing in stock market, debt consolidation, even paying off student loans that I hope the Biden administration will wipe out in 2022. Over 240 lenders waiting to fund you. If the banks say no, give the Big C team a chance. Minimum requirement, 650 credit, FICO, 27,000 annual income, no new lines of credit in the last 6 months, and no late pays, 2 years consistent income. So I want to say, if the banks say no, give the Big C team a chance. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624, and get that some praise. I said get that some praise to the bank if you then just get a second opinion if that makes sense to you. I also want to say, for everybody out there in the world of sports betting, prop betting last night, man, something about Vegas was all over that game. I did say that Alabama would win unless there were some shenanigans, and I do believe that shenanigans are a part of what happens in life and what happens in sports. I don't have any money in the game, so I don't have a dog in the fight, if that makes sense to you. But I do believe that there are times when some things just don't make sense. Players going down on injuries for Alabama, and I don't know if any players went out with injuries for Oklahoma. I'm just saying things happen that make you go, how did that happen? But it's for the bookies in Las Vegas, they always win. They said that I think Alabama was a 2.5-point underdog, and at one time in the game, it looks like the people who bet on Georgia were going to cover with a few minutes left in that game. And then inexplicably, a quarterback who'd only thrown 4 interceptions all year throws 2. You can say what you want to say, but he was throwing to freshman receivers. They dropped the touchdown pass and also dropped 2 other crucial passes. I thought there was like 5 drops in that game, but they're freshman receivers, and Georgia has a good run defense, but their passing defense could be had, and I think we saw that outside of Alabama just not holding on to the ball. But Alabama's built their program over the years under, he's done a great job. I mean, who can fault what the great St. Nick Saban has done? And now Kirby Smart, one of his proteges, has just kind of learned to copy him. And so congratulations to Georgia. The game was won because they played better football down the stretch, and that's just my opinion. Also want to say this game selection is sponsored by Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol, 100% on this game. I think I almost coughed. I was going to do a joke like they coughed up the ball. They coughed up the ball. Then I ended up almost coughing myself. Let me try it again. Okay, that's the sound effect, but it didn't work out right. It was a bad joke. I was going to say Alabama, they coughed up a bulldog, an elephant tried to eat a bulldog, and it couldn't swallow. Okay, maybe I'm the only one that thinks that's funny. Does an elephant really cough? Well, the elephant coughed up last night, but it couldn't swallow that bulldog. I know I'm the only one that thinks that's funny. That's why I don't tell jokes. It's unfair. It's a tasty burger and it comes with what's all the exotic meats, and an elephant and a dog are exotic meats. And you gotta know that part is funny. What's on the menu? Elephants and dogs. You know, I heard that growing up, snakes and snails and puppy dog tails, elephants and dogs were playing last night for the championship of the universe. Give Alabama some praise. In real life, an elephant would maul a dog, but the dog won last night. I just thought that was funny. The dog won last night. What a great game. It was a great game. I love college football. I actually miss college football, but everybody has to. Every time you see college football, some people say, oh, too many games. We don't need more bowl games, or we don't need more college football games or more teams involved in the tournament. And I think we do. It would be great to see more teams being able to participate the way Georgia and Alabama fans did last night. Vince Dooley was there, who helped Georgia win their national championship back in 1980 with the great Herschel Walker. They were doing their thing. But last night, Georgia and Alabama, the Dogs, how about them Dogs? Their first championship since 1980. Man, 1980 is a long time ago. Number 3, Georgia. They got rid of that. They got the elephant off their back. That's there. Some people say monkey, but I say, Georgia, you got to admit, Georgia got the elephant off their back, okay? They got the elephant off their back. Oh, man, they got a big win, 33-18. Head coach Nick Saban, and decades of close calls to win the 2022 college football national championship and claim his first crown since 1980. Give the Bulldogs some praise. They deserve some praise. All fair and love and war. 1980. It started as a field goal contest, and then up and down in the second half, where the Bulldogs had enough big plays on both sides of the ball, ultimately knocking off the Elephants 33-18, the Alabama Elephant, the Crimson Tide. And again, Alabama, when they had players go down, they didn't have their top 2 receivers in this game, so that made it tough on Bryce Young, but he had a couple of freshmen that looked like they're going to be pretty good as long as they learn to catch the ball with 2 hands. Being rattled in the first half, Georgia quarterback Stetson Bennett, he played with good confidence over the final 30 minutes after he had a fumble, and Alabama recovered it, and they went in and got a touchdown from right around the 15-yard line. But the final 30 minutes, Stetson Bennett played great, throwing the final 2 offensive touchdowns of the game. He completed 17 of 26 passes, 224 yards. Alabama Heisman Trophy quarterback Bryce Young, the 2021 Heisman Trophy winner, he coughed up a deep interception. And I think it's just a lack of timing with his receivers, because he was expecting the receiver to come back to the ball. Did not happen, and then the point spread got even wider from 25-18 to 33-18. The second turnover of the night, the defense kept Akili Ringo, returned 79 yards for a touchdown, and that put the game on ice with about a minute to play. So Alabama finishes 13-2, and Georgia finishes 14-1. So for anyone thinking we don't need to expand the bowl games, I think making sense of it, you don't have to be undefeated to win a national championship. North Dakota State, they beat Montana State. They didn't finish undefeated, but they ended up winning the national championship in the FCS. And then Georgia, where they were not undefeated, but they won the national championship, knocking off Alabama. When I think about what the Dogs did, they scored the game's final 3 touchdowns. Bennett found a great receiver, a freshman, and Brock Bowers for a 15-yard score with just 3:33 to play on Georgia's prior possession. Bennett hooked up Adonai Mitchell for an outstanding 40-yard touchdown on a free play created by an offsides penalty by the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then they went to the pass-heavy attack. They led most of the game because Alabama was doing this thing earlier. They just kept kicking field goals in the red zone. I thought Bryce Young had a good game, but they couldn't run the ball. They just decided, I mean, obviously you're missing top receivers. They couldn't take the top off of the defense, so it kind of played into Georgia's hands. Touchdown maker Bryce Young was 35 of 57, 369 yards, and a touchdown with 2 interceptions, which is uncharacteristic. He'd only thrown 4 all season and threw 2 in this game. It's the first time in his career that Young finished the game with more interceptions than touchdowns. Young was without his top 2 pass catchers, as I was mentioning, most of that game due to another significant injury suffered in the second Alabama-Georgia meeting of the season. Now, you got to give Georgia credit. Alabama was held to field goals of 37, 45, and 37 yards in the first half. Normally, you get 2 out of those 3 possessions would end up in touchdowns, but the Tide, they hit 2 big plays when Young found Jamison Williams for 40 yards and later Cameron Latou for 61 yards. But Williams, Alabama's leading receiver, suffered a non-contact knee injury on his catch, and that left the Tide short-handed, and it showed. Georgia connected on the kicks of 24 and 49 yards. They trailed 9-6 at halftime, and then Bennett, he linked up with George Pickens in a deep post for 52 yards and create the team's first field goal in its best play of the opening 20 minutes. But when you think about Bryce Young, who came out of Santa Ana Mater Dei of Southern California, he's not used to losing. That program in California has won national championships, I believe, 3 of the last 5 years. They were 73-3 over that time frame, that program in high school. And then, so for Alabama, they get a lot of the best talent, and so does Georgia. But Young committed the game's first major misstep early in the third quarter. It sailed a pass. It was intercepted by Georgia's Christopher Smith at the Alabama 43 and responded by driving the Tide down to a field goal. And next to possession, only Georgia's defense came up big again, blocking a 48-yard field goal attempt. But that only came after 2 drop passes that were going to be inside the 10-yard line. So Bryce Young did all he could do, but you got to give Georgia some credit. A 67-yard run by touchdown maker James Cook, who is Dalvin Cook's relative, who plays for the Vikings, the longest allowed by the Tide since 2015. That put Georgia in the red zone. They found pay dirt later on first downs and then a touchdown. And you got to just give your credit. You got to tip your hat to Georgia. It had been since 1980. Since 1980 is a long time. People talk about Notre Dame haven't won a championship since 1988. Look at what Georgia's had to go through, their heartache. So it's hard to win national championships. That's why you got to look. Nick Saban has 7 of them, 6 at Alabama, and then 1 at LSU. Just didn't come up with enough big plays by his young receivers to make another national championship. But I do say also Bryce Young, he said it was on him. The loss was on him. That's not true. Not at all. He was being a leader and not trying to throw his young receivers under the bus. You just got to give Georgia the credit. The defense is big, beefy defense. They'll have a lot of NFL players that will get a chance to play on Sundays coming into next year, even though they also recruit a good recruiting class coming in for the 2022 season. In their kickoff with the Oregon Ducks out of the Pac-12 conference, and that's a game I can't wait to see how Oregon, what they did this year. They went into Ohio State and got a win, but they were not expected to compete at that game, or at least win that game. Maybe they'll have the same kind of fortune playing against Georgia Bulldogs. College football's in good hands. It's in really good hands, but you got to look at Smart, too. You think about it, his first season at Georgia in 2016, he had a class ranked 6th nationally, and has never hauled in a group ranked lower than 4th in 5 classes. I think it showed last night the talent is deep through Georgia, and their defense flew all over the field. But again, I'm not going to let them off the hook. Don't look at the 33-18 score. It was 25-18, but at one time it was 19-18, and Alabama was without 2 receivers that accounted for 2,700 yards. That's amazing. And then they played I think it was their running back was like a 4th-year player because he wasn't able to start last year with Najee Harris playing in front of him. So you got to just give both teams credit. But this, to me, had Georgia lost their top 2 receivers and playing with a number 4 running back, maybe they wouldn't have held on to win that game. So Alabama, they were just kind of banged up for the game, but they still played good enough to nearly win that game. You still got to give Georgia a lot of credit. I saw there's something that I noticed last night. The crowd, I think they said the weather was 20 degrees outside Indianapolis. The crowd was packed, 68,000 fans on hand. I do feel bad for the fans that live in the South that weren't able to travel to see the Bulldogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide play. If they had played maybe in Alabama, or if they had played down in Georgia or in New Orleans, both dome stadiums, they would have had more of the people that show up to watch them play be able to do that. But it's all fair and level. Well, that's just the way the game is. And JT Daniels out of Mater Dei of Santa Ana, he and Bryce Young went to the same high school, who was a starter when he left USC at Georgia, helped them win the last 4 games, finished in the top 10. Got hurt this year, and obviously they went with Stetson Bennett, who's just had a great game. Very emotional kid on the sideline after Georgia went up 33-18. And that's what you love about the college game. There's so many kids that love this game, and you're just not going to win every game. And so Bryce Young, he has another year at Alabama. I do believe he'll head to the NFL instead of his junior season. He'll opt for the NFL, and he should. But I think what turned the game was the Jamison Williams injury. It was really big for Alabama and Georgia. Hard to say whether the outcome would have been different. I think it would have, because he would have caught some of those passes that were dropped, like 5 drop passes by freshman receivers. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but that's a difference maker. Because don't think about 33-18. It was a 25-18 game. Really, I think, in my opinion, Alabama left 2 touchdowns, let them get off the board because they just couldn't catch passes. But that's part of football. Georgia earned the national championship, but they did it, if we're just being honest, they did it against a team that did not have their top 2 receivers. And that's just a fact. So Georgia Bulldogs, the championship gear is released. They won the first national championship in 41 years. And you can imagine down in Georgia, they're going to have I don't know if they're going to have a parade, but they got the Georgia Bulldogs and also the national the baseball championship also with the Atlanta Braves. So it's all fair and level war. I just want to say again, congratulations to college football because you got it right last night. What a great game. Congratulations, Georgia Bulldogs. Roof. The elephants could not swallow the dog. We'll take the Big Feet Paws, also known as the Big Feet Tap Out. From the words of former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. All right, we are back on the Big Feet Paws, also known as the Big Feet Timeout. You can follow Big Feet Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 20 podcast applications all over the universe and streaming on 4 TV applications all over the universe as well. Really do appreciate that. So now that college football has come to a conclusion in Division I, the FCS decided it with North Dakota State knocking off Montana State 38-10 over the weekend. And then last night on Monday, the Georgia Bulldogs were able to beat the defending national champion Alabama Crimson Tide. Whenever you knock off Nick Saban, and you know he's going to be loaded again next year. They just do it every year. Alabama's either losing or winning a national championship. That's a good football program. So I want to run down Big C's final college football rankings after Georgia beat after the Dogs beat the Elephants last night. It's all fair and level war. But when I think about it, it's come to a conclusion. The bowl season saw a bit of everything from canceled games with many moving parts and a familiar scene at the top. The final top 25 should be interesting. But I'm just going to give my top 20 from what I feel, and it's just Big C's thoughts. Number 25, the San Diego State Aztecs. I go to 25. San Diego State Aztecs, they finished the season in the top 25. They blasted University of Texas San Antonio in the Miami Bowl with 12 wins in the books. The Aztecs have a season they can actually hang their helmets on. Number 24, the Wisconsin Badgers. The good old boys from the Big Ten Conference. After a slow start to the season, Wisconsin started to turn things around. After blowing a chance to make the Big Ten title game, they did put the clamps on Jaden Daniels and Arizona State in Las Vegas, and they'll end up number 24 in the country. Number 23, the Utah State Aggies. Kind of a surprise to a lot of people. They were heavy winners in the bowl season as they took down Oregon State of the Pac-12, and it's all fair. In love and war, this team out of the Mountain West, a win might not earn them a spot in the top 20, but I'm going to put them at top 23. Oregon State was a mid-level Pac-12 team, but that's still a big win. The Mountain West knocking off the Pac-12. Number 2, Kentucky Wildcats. And looks like the Wildcats like the Citrus more than the Hawkeyes. When you think about it, they moved up to 22 spots after defeating Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. The Hawkeyes drop out of the top 25. Number 21, Arkansas Razorbacks. They represented the SEC well during bowl season with a win over Penn State. The Nittany Lions, that's in the Big C Bowl because the Razorback and a Nittany Lion are all exotic meats. It's all fair in Leavenworth. But that's how we have these conference rivals. Who's better? SEC, Big 10, Big 12, all fair in Leavenworth. I'm going to put in at number 19, the Houston Cougars. They came up with a big win over Auburn in the Birmingham Bowl. It was an impressive win for Houston, which finished the season with 12 wins. And I like that the Cougars were doing. I still would love to see them join the Big 12 when Texas leaves for the SEC. Number 20. Actually, I'm going to go with I'm going to put them at number 20. I'm going to say number 19, North Carolina State Wolfpack. Now, they had a spot to make it going into it's a thought that they're going to play UCLA, and then COVID happened, so they didn't get to play the Holiday Bowl. But I'm still going to put them and I think they've earned that ranking to be number 19. Number 20, actually, I'm going to go number 18. The Oregon Ducks out of the Pac-12. This was the team that was as high as number 2 in the country after knocking off Ohio State. I know Vardell went down with the injury at Stanford, and it just hurt them. But the Duck season ended with a quack. Not the way people thought it would end, especially myself. But they went up against Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl and just didn't play inspired. I know their head coach left for Miami. A lot of things happen when you go to bowl games and you're not what you thought you were. They ended up being blown out twice by Utah and the Pac-12. Actually, the regular season game of the year up in Utah in the Pac-12. Then they went on to beat Oregon State. And then they also lost the game again in the Pac-12 championship to Utah. So they lost to Utah 38-7 at Utah. And then the Pac-12 championship down in Las Vegas, they lost 38-10. So Oregon, with that big win over Ohio State to start the season, kind of fills it out. They have a lot of high-star, 5-star recruits coming in for next year. Can't wait to see that game against Georgia. And I'm going to go number 17, the Clemson Tigers. What about I won't say they had a big fall, but they did fall. The season did not go as expected with a bowl win for Clemson. It could have been a really bad year. The Tigers earned a win over Iowa State in the Cheez-Its Bowl. And to me, that's good enough for Dabo Swinney because it could have been much worse. Number 16, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. A great year for the Demon Deacons, ended with a blowout win over Rutgers in the Gator Bowl. And they were expected to have, I think they were going to play Florida, but they pulled out, etc. But they got the chance to play against Rutgers. Number 15, a team that could have been in the top 10, BYU Cougars. Could have been a great BYU season, ended up just a good one. The Cougars ended the year with a 31-28 loss to University of Alabama, Birmingham, in the Independence Bowl. It was a 10-win season that should have been 11 or 12 win for the good old boys from BYU. Number 14, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Panthers. Hard to push aside Pitt for a loss in the Peach Bowl. Heisman finalist Kenny Pickett set the game out as he prepared for the upcoming NFL draft, and the Panthers had a chance to win late before a swing of fortune. It's hard to see the ACC champion falling much lower than that. I'm going to go number 13, Louisiana Raging Cajun. Ended the season on a high note as it defeated Marshall in the New Orleans Bowl, and the Raging Cajun finished the season with 13 wins, only had one blemish on their record. They're a really good program on the rise. I'm going to go number 12 in Big C's college football top 25. Ole Miss, the Rebels, they caught a great deal of bad luck as it lost Matt Carroll to injury in the Sugar Bowl like Alabama had last night versus Georgia. They had their star signal caller not been heard. It's probably a much different result against the Baylor Bears rather than they got beat 21-7 by Baylor. I'm going to say number 11 in Big C's final college football rankings for 2021-22 season. Utah Utes, an amazing season, came to an end with maybe one of the most exciting Rose Bowl games ever. Outside of the story going into the 2005 Rose Bowl with number 1 USC, number 2 Texas, 2 undefeated teams, and both teams were playing with a lot on the line. USC hadn't lost a game in 3 years, and it just went down to the wire with Vince Young having a game of his life at the Rose Bowl, winning 41-38 over USC. That also had a lot of mistakes in that game. Still back in 2005. It was 3rd and 2 with about 2.5 minutes left. Reggie Bush, the Heisman Trophy winner, on the sideline. Matt Lannert turns around, hands off to Lindell White, gets 1 yard, and they come back to 4th down and 1. They can bring in Reggie Bush, who was averaging 5 yards a carry, and they hand off to Lindell White again, and he stopped for about maybe no gain, and Texas takes over while the Reggie Bush, the Heisman Trophy winner, was on the sideline. Just so many things in that game went bad. So this game, with Utah and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. 48-45. They did win the Pac-12 championship. They have nothing to hang their heads over. They were the final shot to win for the conference during the bowl season. Unfortunately, the state of the conference probably placed them just outside of national picture, in my opinion. That's why I'm going to put them at number 11. Number 10 in the country for when you think about football, Oklahoma also had things change. Lincoln Riley left, just like Cristobal left Oregon. The Sooners, Bob Stoops had the nation filling whole again as he coached the Sooners in the Alamo Bowl against Oregon. And Oklahoma rolled up 47 points. And when you think about how these two great programs, always talking national championships, it did not end up as the best game or a game that it could have been. Again, both teams losing their coaches, but they still made a good game of it. Number 9, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Man, Notre Dame had a chance to knock off Oklahoma State. The collapse in the desert do Notre Dame justice in the Fiesta Bowl. You know, Notre Dame won their last national championship beating West Virginia back in 1988 under the great Lou Holtz. Major Harris was the quarterback for West Virginia, and Tony Rice was the quarterback for Notre Dame. And Notre Dame won that game. I think it was 35-21, and they won the national championship. All's fair in love and war. And they went back down to that same state. They blew a 28-7 lead in and out of Oklahoma State to make a big comeback. And probably going to have a really bad taste in their mouth for a while. But, hey, they had a new coach, too, because Brian Kelly left. So it's all fair and level where college kids is never over till it's over. Number 8, Michigan State Spartans. When you think about bracing for Kenny Pickett, Michigan State gets a bump on the Peach Bowl win. It won't be the same bump that Oklahoma State or Baylor are likely to get, but the Spartans end the season in the top 10, and Mel Tucker gets $95 million extension. So you got to know he loves his bank account lately. And then that's even though that's over 10 years. But Oklahoma State, number 7 in Big C's college football top 25. The big comeback, the Fiesta Bowl moment that won't soon be forgotten as Oklahoma State rallied to beat Notre Dame. Play like a champion in a thrilling game. Oklahoma State, I'm telling you, that's a team that kicking themselves for not winning the Big 12 championship and having a chance to be in the Final Four. But they did get a big win coming back, beating national program really of the I would say the century in Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. The Baylor Bears caught a break with Matt Carroll going down, but an impressive night nonetheless. They hold on and they stopped an explosive Ole Miss team, held them to 7 points in the Sugar Bowl. So that's Big 12 versus the SEC and how that for them back at the Apples, all fan level. Or number 5 in Big C's college football, top 25, the Cincinnati Bearcats. When you think about this team, they've only had 2 losses in the last 2 years, both to SEC teams, Georgia and Alabama. Nothing to hang their heads about. 27-6 loss to Alabama. Nothing to really hang their heads about. The Bearcats, they lost 27-24 to Georgia the year before. But the Bearcats, just a great season as an underdog in the championship games or in the championship series. They broke ground for the college football playoffs from a group of 5 while they got beaten up by Alabama. They just did not match up physically, but they still deserve to finish in the top 5 in my opinion, where they ended up. Alabama and Georgia, again, the only 2 teams to beat them over the last 2 years. And then Michigan also coming out of the Midwest in the Big Ten Conference better than Cincinnati. But I'm going to say the Bearcats deserve to be a top 5 team. I know they don't play the same schedule that an Alabama, Georgia, or Michigan play, or even Notre Dame. But they beat Notre Dame, and that was their one shining moment that got them into the Final Four. But Notre Dame lost to Oklahoma State that did not even win the Big 12. All's fair in love and war. Number 4 in Big C's college football power rankings, I got to say, just because they lost to Michigan, I'm going to put Ohio State at number 4. Yes, they did win the Rose Bowl. Yes, they are one of the top teams year in and year out playing for college football national champions. That team is loaded. When you think about how good they are, Ohio State putting them ahead of Cincinnati, yes, they deserve it. Everyone knows they're a better team. They finished the season with a big win in the Rose Bowl. What an amazing game against Utah. And that's why I'm also bumping them over Cincinnati. If Cincinnati's marquee win was against Notre Dame on the road, a team that lost to the Big 12 runner-up, then I'm going to put Ohio State, a team that beat the Pac-12 champion, ahead of them. You beat a conference champion, not a team that was a conference runner-up. All's fair in love and war. But I'm not going to put them over Michigan because the head-to-head went to Michigan in that game, 42-27. But Ohio State, they rallied to defeat Utah in what was one of the most exciting Rose Bowl games in recent memory. So you gotta tip your cap to this nuts from Ohio and a Buckeye is a nut. Number 3 in college football, final Big C's 2021 season final rankings, Michigan Wolverines. When I think about where they stand, I don't think Jim Harbaugh will be there next year. Michigan should be, based on what they did this year, they earned the right to finish number 3, regardless of Ohio State winning the Rose Bowl and just an exciting game. The Wolverines made it to the college playoff party because they beat their rival. They beat Ohio State head-to-head, even though they did lose to Michigan State. It's like any given Saturday in college football, but I got to like what Michigan did throughout the season. They were able to get to the college football championship and Final Four, just didn't have enough of a passing game to compete with Georgia, the eventual national champion, and they won. I think they won 34-3 or 34-7. Beg your pardon, 34-11. Michigan got a late touchdown in that game. So number 2, college football national championship game, Alabama Crimson Tide. I just gotta say, as most people who cover football know, you're missing your top 2 receivers, and you're on a running back who was their 4th pick. Really, he's been there 4 years, but he couldn't beat out Najee Harris the last couple of years. But he's a good running back. They were just beaten up. They just had too many injuries, and I thought that was the key in that game. Georgia played well enough, but despite beating Georgia in the SEC championship game, leading most of the national championship game, Alabama could not hold on to make it back-to-back championships, and the Crimson Tide finally fell short against the SEC counterparts, and what will end the season as the number 2 team in the country. When it mattered the most, the Tide just did not have their star players. They didn't have enough players, playmakers, especially freshmen that kept dropping balls against Georgia. Had they had their cast of star players, I think Alabama would have turned the tide, no pun intended. But the elephant could not eat the dog, and that's why, that's worth a laugh. The elephant, in my opinion, could not eat the dog. That's a pretty grim story. Neutral of Omaha is people you can count on when the going's rough. But the elephant could not eat the dog last night. Georgia, they have finally got it done. They skated the top of the mountain, top of college football, and they knocked off the elephant. The Bulldogs at last are national champions for the first time since 1980, and you gotta give them dogs some praise. Roof, 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 roof. The dog, his name is Ugga. He's kind of sleepy-looking dog, but he's not as sleepy-looking as the elephant that he ate. No wonder he was sleepy. Just finished eating an elephant. But for most of the night, it looked like Georgia wasn't going to be able to break through against Alabama's defense until James Cook had a 67-yard run that set up the Bulldogs for their first score of the game. And Zamir White. Then the cherry on top of Stetson Bennett finding Adonai Mitchell for a deep score in the end zone. But the Bulldogs have finally put the elephant off their back, and the Crimson Tide had their number over the years. But you just got to look at what they did. Their defense stood tall, just like they played all season long. And the fact they kept Alabama out of the end zone being the deciding factor, ultimately because Alabama did not have its first team of wide receivers. I think that has to be said, because if not, then we're fooling ourselves. But Georgia will see itself at the top of the final college football rankings with a big win over Alabama, the league rival, and they have the right to chant that they are indeed number 1. The number 1 team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. Woof, woof. Woof, 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 woof. We're going to take what's called the Big Feed Pause, also known as the Big Feed Timeout. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about sports and your neck of the woods. In the former words of California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we're back for the Big Feed Pause, also known as the Big Feed Timeout. You can follow Big Feed Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 20 podcast applications all over the universe. And streaming on 4 TV applications, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Really do appreciate the growth of Big Feed Sports. I'm going to say, are you ready for some basketball? Of course you are. Who got next? That's what they say on the playground. Who got next? Congratulations, Alabama. But it was confirmed that Jamison Williams tore an ACL. So Alabama, congratulations being in the championship game without your top 2 star wide receivers being able to play the game. And then you also have with Michi being out as well. And then Georgia, the National Football College champions, all fair level work. But NBA basketball tonight, the great Rod Stewart talked about it many times. And a lot of basketball teams and sports teams love saying, tonight, Tuesday, January the 11th, 2022. I got to make sure my producer's paying attention. The Oklahoma City Thunder are on the road, and they are taking on Washington. Game already underway. The Phoenix Suns up in Canada taking on the Toronto Raptors. That game tipped off at 4:30 p.m. Golden State Warriors, what a game, at the Memphis Grizzlies. That game tip off at 5 p.m. on NBA TV to see how well the Splash Brothers will go up against Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis has played Golden State pretty close over the years. We'll see what happens with the Splash Brothers doing their thing down in Memphis. You know, the Tennessee Titans have already become the number one seed in the AFC playoffs, and we'll see if Golden State can go down there and take care of those good old boys from Memphis. Minnesota Timberwolves down in the South taking on New Orleans. That game tipped off already at 5 o'clock p.m. Detroit is in the Windy City, Chicago at 5 p.m. Tip-off already happened. And then a big game down in Southern California. The Denver Nuggets taking on the LA Clippers. That game will tip off tonight at 7:30 p.m. on TNT. So good luck for the NBA basketball tonight. All fan level war. A lot of good boys are having their thoughts about who's going to win a game that must be won on the hardwood in LA. Will we actually see the Lakers and the Clippers get knocked out in the first round? I hope not, because basketball is big in LA. Got to make sure we have a lot of basketball games. I just love the game of basketball, and when you have NBA basketball in LA, it's trumped by the NFL with the Rams being in the playoffs. We know they have a home game coming up against the Arizona Cardinals. The Dodgers are always in the playoffs, so are the Lakers too. And, of course, the Clippers over the last couple of years. We saw the Lakers win the championship in the bubble season down in Florida when they beat the Miami Heat in Orlando. But last year, it was, a shock to the system at LA seeing them knocked out by the Suns. But the Suns are the real deal. We know that. But this thing that I have with NBA basketball, I would say no matter how good USC is, no matter how good the Rams are, no matter how good the Los Angeles Chargers are, even the Los Angeles Dodgers, LA is about the Lakers. If the Lakers aren't playing great, then that hurts. I won't say it hurts LA. LA has so many things to do. But when you saw the 49ers, their fans, go down to SoFi Stadium and were as loud as the Rams, you would never see that in San Francisco if the Rams fans came up and had more fans than the 49ers at Levi Stadium. But I think the crowd understands how passionate the fans are in San Francisco. And again, with the Raiders left, but Raiders and 49er fans, they aren't the same anyway. However, back in the 80s when the Raiders went to Los Angeles, some of those fans that did go to Raider games, they became 49er fans. So there's a lot of passion in the Bay Area for football. And I know that passion showed up in Southern California. And that's just my opinion. They were more loud at SoFi Stadium than the Rams fans. It might have even been somewhat of an embarrassment when the Rams couldn't even keep the crowd cheering for them and out cheering the 49er fans. You kept hearing chants of beat LA. They were just a louder crowd, in my opinion. All fan level war. But I think when you look at basketball, and I'm so intrigued to see what's going to happen, there's 6 teams that's most likely to be active around the February trade deadline, whether that's Philadelphia, you have Atlanta, you have Boston, Indiana, Sacramento, and then Portland. All could be looking for deals before the February 10th trade deadline. And also to talk about where should Philadelphia consider sending all-star guard Ben Simmons. That's something that you got to think about too. Even up in Sacramento, there's a lot of people who are concerning themselves of where players are going to be. But all roads on the phone, they lead to Philadelphia because, Simmons has a kind of a love-hate relationship with the Philadelphia organization. They got to hold firm to their trade demand and try to get equal value in return. But if you're going to trade for Simmons, you're getting the guy that just doesn't like to shoot the basketball. I'm even football mood. But a poor trade is not going to help Joel Embiid get any closer to the championship. So they need to get something in there for Simmons that's going to help them win. That's just my opinion, and they know it too. When you look at Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks, they have come so close last year, reaching the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. And when you think about the talent, the Hawks who reached the conference finals last year they had a winning record at this point, they still be a prime candidate to deal only if a surplus of young talent and obvious trade chips. You have Danilo Gallinari. The contract guaranteed him $5 million next season, making him all but gone for the Hawks by the deadline. Atlanta can package him with a young rotational player, Cam Reddish, and most likely, and get some more support for Trae Young. He's untouchable. John Collins is seemingly a keeper. They're an impressive team down in Atlanta. They got a great backcourt. They shoot the threes. They just need to play more consistent basketball and not have the turnovers. You also look at the Boston Celtics, got a big win last night over Indiana. But do the Celtics dare trade one of their star wing players, both tight with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? I say no. Do not trade Tatum and Brown. They just got to find some continuity. But those are two rising stars. But the fans base of Boston, man, sometimes they can grow restless. Larry Bird's not coming back. Most likely the Celtics are searching for a creative point guard. Someone like the Mavericks' Jalen Brunson could dangle Marcus Smart instead, my opinion. But you got to keep Brown, and don't even talk about Tatum. He's their next Larry Bird for the Boston Celtics, my opinion. You see the Indiana Pacers, something must be done in Indiana. Home for most of the difference-putting team in the NBA. After hiring Rick Carlisle last summer, the Pacers expected better results this year. But they played a great game last night against Boston. Almost got them beat also. But how much longer are they willing to go with Domantas Sabonis and then Karis LeVert, Malcolm Brogdon, and Miles Turner? When you look at those players, Reggie Miller's not coming back there either. But good news for Indiana, all four have reasonable contracts and can be easily swapped, if that makes sense to you. The Sacramento Kings have one of the most beautiful arenas in NBA basketball. But much like the Pacers, the Kings apparently have gone as far with this current group can take them, which is not very far. I thought they'd be a playoff team, but even having some of their own players say after their game this week that they just don't know where the chemistry is, and they don't know if they have the energy. Well, they got to find it. Sacramento hasn't made the playoffs in 15 years. They're due. The Kings are rebuilding. It's the latest attempt to find a coach that they have that's going to stick, in my opinion. They keep talking about getting rid of Buddy Hield. Maybe even De'Aaron Fox. Harrison Barnes. Those are the most likely suspects. Tyrese Halliburton is a star player, but he doesn't play well with De'Aaron Fox. A number one pick 2 years ago appears to be safe. And then there's Marvin Bagley III, who's been injured a lot, number 2 overall pick in 2018 draft. Alvin Gentry is the coach there. I like him. They got rid of Walton earlier this year. But since the Kings need to play big, they got to play big down the stretch. They just have to. They got to find some chemistry for that organization up in Sacramento. Portland Trailblazers, Dollar Dame is 16, would be the Portland Trailblazers, a perennial playoff team. Currently have a free fall in the West standings, but the Blazers currently don't have a firm GM replacement for Neil Ausley, who's been ousted weeks ago. Joe Cronin serving as an interim. Such situations, you got to find someone to keep Dollar Dame happy. I think Dollar Dame is going to be out of Portland somehow, some way. He has the highest trade value that you can have as a player right now. But cash strapped, what are you going to get for him? I just think about it this way. In the offseason, it would be a major surprise if the Blazers had a major deal involving Damian Lillard without a permanent GM in place. So they got to solve the GM in place first. They got to do that first before they start making waves and what they're going to do to build that franchise back. I just think they're in a tough spot. Dollar Dame, just my opinion, he was more valuable last year than he is this year. All because Portland had more chemistry last year. I know they got rid of Coach Stotts, and then it's just been all downhill. Chauncey Billups came in with his baggage, and no matter how much people overlook that, it changes things. I think that Damian Lillard was a little bit too loyal and decided to stay around. If you just watch what Kevin Durant has done in going from OKC to Golden State, now to New Jersey, he still hasn't won a championship outside of being with Steph Curry. Steph Curry's been in Golden State and probably will retire there. Can't really say that. Look at LeBron James. He's been in Cleveland. He's been in Miami, then back to Cleveland, now Golden State. Players bounce around. Russell Westbrook's been in different cities also, from OKC to Washington and now with the Lakers. Everybody is expendable in the world of the NBA. Even Kareem at one time played for the Milwaukee Bucks, ended up with the LA Lakers. All friend level war. I hope we all have a great weekend getting ready for more football coming up for the playoffs. All friend level war. Congratulations, Alabama. You couldn't cough. You couldn't eat the dog. Alabama coughed up the dog last night. You can cough up dogs too. Everybody this Friday on Big T Sports. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right hand man. He would always tell Ali, "You flow like a butterfly. You sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how do you lose? I always say, I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty I can't be beat. I'm so light on my feet because all these Big T burgers, they make me rumble, young man, rumble." All fair and leather war. And the Alabama couldn't cough up the dog. That's funny to me. My beautiful mother always says that never speak for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going to that garbage, pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go to that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, don't eat dogs unless you shoot them all the way. Alabama. Oh, as we always tell you at every Big T Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.